Welcome to the Disrupting Obesity podcast. I'm Charlotte Skanes, and I'll be sharing ways to regain control over your body and lose an extreme amount of weight naturally. Being fat is about so much more than just the food. It's about your relationship with food. That means that dealing with your weight is about more than just the food, too. You have to change that relationship. You have to start disrupting obesity. This is episode 99, so we're going to do something a little different. I've got a topic that keeps coming up on calls in the forum. So I think that's probably something that we should be talking about too. I have this whole thing about vehicles, the food that delivers the food to your mouth. Learning to control them with swaps and substitutions and sometimes even compromises is the next step after you get the whole spread, sprinkle, pour thing going. It was just going to be a quick little episode in between a couple of heavy ones, but then I had an amazing call and I've got to share parts of it with you guys too. So it's going to be like what I did in episode number 89 when I gave you a peek inside my membership. I'm going live 3 times a week so that I can really connect with the women who've joined me, and we're having some amazing conversations. Some of them are too good not to share. With only one teeny tiny exception today that I asked permission for, you're not going to hear from them or see them, but you can hear my side, and I think you're going to find it helpful too. The first clip I'm going to share is what I said when one of the flamingos shared that she struggled with a restrictive plan that she tried. It had a lot of rules, and she asked me to talk about safety nets. I talk about emotional and physical hunger and how our culture has changed the way that we view physical hunger while trying to pretend that emotional hunger isn't a real thing all at the same time. Then I'm going to share what you should do when you think you've gone off the rails with a binge. Last up, I'm going to start off by talking about how there are no good or bad foods, but there is a difference between something being healthy and something being helpful. And you're not good or bad either, based on your food choices. So let's just dive right into the first clip from the forum. We're going to talk a little bit about safety nets. So many systems, whether it's, although they're going bankrupt now apparently, Weight Watchers or the old Deal a Meal plan or the system that you're talking about, it's just a way to avoid calorie counting. So saying you can only have so many foods from this list and that list and that list, but you don't have to track your calories. It's the same thing. Only instead of giving people the security of understanding, like how calories work and how many you need and those types of things, we say, oh no, just eat so many foods that are green, and you can have so many foods that are red, and you can have unlimited purple foods. That's just because they've calculated the calories and decided which one goes where. And I think it's completely natural to push back when we hear the word rule. That's why I don't use that word except for one time. I have one rule. And it's really just a concept. It's not anything I impose on people. I just want everyone to be aware of the 20-minute rule, because that's science. We can't change that. We can't argue with that. It's not somebody's opinion. It just is what it is. It is a rule. Everything else that we do safety nets. We do safety nets like mine. I can't stand while I eat. If the refrigerator door in my house is open, I cannot have food in my mouth. I don't stand in front of the fridge and eat anymore. I could have called them rules, but I know myself well enough to know that mentally, if I had a rule that I can't eat while I'm standing up, I'm going to push back as hard as I can, and it might last maybe a week, maybe 2, before I just go, screw it. I would much rather have a safety net in place because of the trapeze artists, right? They can practice, they can soar because they know they're not going to smash their face off the concrete if they fall. I know that my weight isn't going to go absolutely insane so long as I do things like don't stand in front of the fridge and eat with the door open. That's a safety net for me. The 20-minute rule, Kim, is the way that it takes your stomach 20 minutes to communicate to your brain that it's full. I learned that, I was watching a medical documentary, and I learned that after I'd lost about 100 pounds, I still had halfway to go. And learning that completely set me free and totally changed my mindset. In large part because I didn't feel like it was all my fault anymore. It let me walk away from some of the blame and the shame and the guilt that was really stopping me from losing my weight. And it did that because if for all those years that I was eating, I wasn't capable of knowing that my body was full, it wasn't all my fault. Yes, I was the person who was eating, blah, blah, blah. Thank you, Gladys. We all know all that shit. But I couldn't have known that I was full because it takes 20 minutes. No matter how full your stomach is, it takes it 20 minutes to fire that signal up to your brain. We're just starting to understand the science behind all of this. We know that there are cells in our guts, that the only other place in our bodies they exist is in our brains. So understanding the gut brain relationship and how those neurotransmitters are working is hard to understand. We're just starting to get there. But I said to myself in that moment, oh my God, I can eat like a foot-long sub and a couple of cookies and, like 20 ounces of pop in 20 minutes. I can eat a lot of food in 20 minutes, and I never even had a chance to know that I was full. I wasn't even giving myself the chance to listen. The other way it set me free was it allowed me to learn how to hear my own body's hunger cues. My relationship with hunger and with food was so skewed after so many years of overeating. And when we tie this back to something like my food map, which is the path in my brain with how I talk to myself about food and how my relationship with food has been dictated. When I was a kid, we didn't have to clear our plates with the food that was put on it. But if we took a second helping, we had to if you take it, you eat it. That was the rule. Well, it probably took me 15 minutes to eat my first plate. I'm now putting seconds on my plate while I'm still in that first 20-minute window. And I've now committed myself to eating. So I had an entire childhood of eating food while my body was telling me it was full. But because I took it, I had to eat it. So I programmed myself to ignore that. So as an obese adult, I had to learn how to rewire that. And it was one of the hardest things that I have ever done. But it was so profoundly worthwhile. So learning that it takes 20 minutes for my stomach to tell my brain it's full gave me the idea that, okay, if I slow down, if I start giving myself a chance to hear that, maybe I'm not going to hear it at first. It's going to take a while for me to get used to this relationship between my brain and my stomach. But I know when to start listening now. And I never knew when to start trying to figure out when I was full before. I would just keep eating and eating and eating until the food was gone. And maybe I would start to feel, like so full I wanted to throw up. I would know I was full then, but I had no idea how to listen to my body to get those cues. It's about building up the new habits, and it's about taking the small changes and applying them incrementally. It's not about making one big sweeping change where I'm just going to cut out carbohydrates and I'm going to lose the weight. No, I'm going to start making sure that my hands are empty when I chew. I'm going to put little safety nets in place. Like I don't eat when I'm standing up. I don't eat in my car anymore. I don't, whatever those situational specific safety nets are that you need to put in place. And it's just doing these little changes over the course of time and letting them all work together, because the radical change doesn't change the underlying relationship with food. It just changes what you're eating. And there's a really important distinction there that I think we need to make, and I think that we all need to stay focused on. It's not about the food. We all eat different foods. We can all lose weight eating different foods. It's about the relationship. And we all have different relationships with food too, but there are things that we hold in common. Right? There's common ground for all of us across the board with this.
I know my first safety net will be I'm not allowed to eat while standing at the cupboard. So I'm going to work on that one this week.
That was one of my first safety nets too. And then realizing that I needed to not eat while standing up, period. And then it was, I can't eat anything from the packaging. That is a safety net that I still have in place for myself. If I'm not willing to take the time to put something, take it out of the box or the bag or the whatever it came in and put it on a fruit nappy or put it on a little plate, do I really want it? If I'm not willing to take the time to put it on a plate, do I actually want to eat it, or am I just grabbing something to go out of a box? So that's another safety net I have for myself. Also, because package eating, it can be so hard because you get in that repetitive, it turns into mindless munching so fast. Whereas if you have a smaller portion of the same thing, or even the same sized portion of the same thing on a plate or in a bowl, psychologically, mentally, it can change the way you pay attention to what you're eating. If we eat something out of a bag, we're telling our brain we don't value it the same way. Because if you're just grabbing it and going it out of a bag, no big deal. That's convenience food as a rule, right? Whereas if we take the time to put something on a plate, and maybe it requires a knife and a fork, maybe it doesn't. But if you take the time to put the food onto a plate, take it out of the plastic, you're giving it more value and you're telling your brain, this food is more important. And you're making it more likely that you're going to make those memories and remember that food and be less hungry later, because we are all about controlling hunger later. It's not just about satisfying ourselves in this moment. We want to be able to satisfy ourselves longer term, because we know that those happy hormones that get released when we eat, they release for a half an hour, they peak, and then we still have them kicking around in our brains for 3 to 5 hours after we eat. So if you're starving 3 hours after you just ate, and you know you ate a big meal, that's a moment to start questioning yourself. Am I hungry? Is it possible for me to be starving? I ate a foot-long sub at lunch and I had a bag of chips with it and I had a pop. It's probably not physical hunger at this point. Plus, I know those hormones are still kicking around because that was just 2 hours ago. So what's really going on? In this second clip, we're going to look at emotional and physical hunger and why they're both very, very real. I talk about the way our relationship with hunger has changed in recent decades, in large part because of the availability of food and some super lucky timing with the toxic diet industry. I lock them into two phases just to keep it easy, and in the program, we just call it physical hunger and emotional hunger, and they are equally real. I am so sick of listening to people say emotional hunger isn't a real thing. Bullshit, it's not. It absolutely is. And anybody who has been dealing with their weight for any amount of time will tell you emotional hunger is profoundly real. And I hate hearing it be devalued and just dismissed offhand. Oh, your body's not hungry. You can't be hungry. Like hell, I can't. Because I certainly can. And we all can. Physical hunger is you haven't eaten for a while. Your body needs nutrients. You need to eat. That's physical hunger. My body is hungry. And we have different cues for that. This kind of the stereotypical ones are the growling stomach. Some people might get a headache. Those physical cues that your body is hungry. And then you've got the emotional hunger, which is where I don't know what's going on, but I just feel like eating. I just can't stop eating. I know that I'm full, but I'm still eating. That's all very real too. Very, very real. But I think a lot of us have been acclimated to being afraid of hunger. We've been told for at least the last 30 years that if you're hungry, it's a bad thing and you have to go get something to eat. Meanwhile, all of our grandparents and great grandparents accepted hunger as a normal part of their day. It was very normal 50 or 60 years ago to go into a meal feeling hungry. You would sit down to your supper and you would be hungry. And now we tend to sit down to our meals and we're just like, well, it's dinner time, because there is a pathological fear of hunger that has pervaded our society, and it's worked out really well. It has made companies billions of
It's
dollars.
worked out well for the companies. Yeah.
It's made them
Not for us.
billions because literally everywhere we go now, we have options for food. And if you look at the food landscape, even a few decades ago, it was very different. The availability of food has very much changed. And alongside that, the messaging has changed, and it has very much become, if you feel hungry, you should eat. And look, there's 3 different stores right here that you can just walk into right now and grab a little snack. Companies like McDonald's invested billions into snack wraps and snack sized this and snack sized that, all of this branding to convince us that we need a meal in between our meals. And we don't. And that was all happening at the same time that the diet culture and the diet industry was doing what? Perpetuating multiple small meals a day. So it went, I'm not saying it was a coordinated effort. It was a wonderful coincidence of marketing, though, that you had the diet industry telling everybody the way to lose weight is to eat, 8, 10 small meals a day. That'll help you get your weight off. And then we've got the fast food industry at the same time going, here's a snack, here's a snack, here's a snack. So up next, we're going to talk about dealing with binges, coping with them mentally and getting past them. I talk about the way that we handle it now and how it actually can be really helpful the next time you feel like you're going off the rails. When we do that and have like a day like what you're describing, nobody wants to track those days because it's really, really scary. What I have found again and again with clients, though, is if you do track it, you might surprise yourself because you didn't go as far over as you're beating yourself up for. Sometimes this can actually be a self-sabotage spiral where I don't track because I'm afraid I went really far over, which kicks off a guilt and shame spiral, which gives me permission to have a bad day again tomorrow. Feeling so bad about myself for what I did yesterday that now we're gonna let that continue on and it can bleed over into other days. Whereas, and I push for the awareness of the baseline because you know where you were and you can do better. So first of all, if you didn't do as badly as you did, then we can just stop that guilt and shame spiral right in its tracks and just start fresh. Okay, I didn't do as bad as I thought I did. I'm back on track. I'm tracking today. We've got this. So that's one reason. And it's that mental piece, right? It's controlling the way you feel about yourself, because most of us know that if we feel bad enough about ourselves, we're going to go eat. And there's a part of our brains that wants that to happen, that little self-sabotage buttons. Like, yeah, if I push hard enough, I'm going to get her to go eat something. And I know it. So it'll just keep hammering on that button. We learn that, and then we start using it as a permission slip. So even if the number's bad, right? Let's say I had a 5,000 calorie day. Okay. I know the next time I'm going off the rails, I can come under that. So the next time I find myself having a really crappy day where I'm going over and it's not going well, I can go, yeah, but last time I did this, I went over by 5,000. I'm going to do better than that today. I know I've gone off the rails, but I can control something. So it's a way of exerting control later if we have the information now. But we need to have that information now so that we can build on it with improvements. Not to make it worse, but to know that we can make it better. Our last clip today, before I share my thoughts on food vehicles and why I think it's so important that you get a handle on them, our last clip is about good and bad foods and why foods that are super healthy aren't guaranteed to be helpful when you're losing weight. There are no good foods or bad foods. There is food. Any labeling we put on it is it's us projecting it onto the food. Foods don't have feelings. They are in their food. They don't feel anything. We put that on them. We assign moral value to food because we're told donuts are bad, chips are bad, cheeseburgers are bad. There's a whole list of things, but it's relative. And from where we're all sitting, it doesn't matter. Bacon and bubblegum, ladies. I like the words nutritionally dense as opposed to good or bad. So all like something like avocado is tremendously nutritionally dense. It is very nutritionally valuable. And some people would say, oh, it's a healthy food. Sure. If you're trying to lose weight, it's a healthy food, but it's not a helpful food because it's just fat. So it's healthy, but it's not helpful. Agreed. So Sarah in the chat is saying she was thinking about this today too. Absolutely. I still need to stop thinking I've been good or bad today. Yeah, you do. You weren't good or bad. You ate. And what we eat does not make us a good or a bad person. We just ate. So if you want to have the good or bad conversation with yourself, from my framework, a good day for me when I'm cutting weight, which I am right now, a good day for me is a day where I track, whether I'm in my calories or not, because the tracking is the win. I need the awareness. I need the awareness. That is a good day. A bad day would probably be a day where I don't track. But yeah, no, we all, not just Sarah, everybody needs to stop thinking I've been good or I've been bad based on the choices we make. And that, for a lot of us, is very, very deep-seated food map. Very deep-seated food map. And I don't think there's anything more confusing for a child than simultaneously being praised by some adults for how well you can eat, which happens to a lot of us as kids, especially as very small kids. Oh my God, I can't believe he ate all that. That's amazing. Look how good an eater he is. How often do we hear the phrase, oh, she's such a good eater? Okay, so we're being praised for it. And then at the other token of time, we will be criticized for it. So you get the good and the bad narrative with regard to you as a human being based on how you ate as a kid. Not the best. I mean, our parents didn't know. It's not the best way. So Dawn is saying, I have learned grace with my food and my days. So no more bad days. It was just a day. Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more there, Dawn. Yeah, it was just a day. It was just a day. And we can't let food have that much power. What you eat does not determine whether or not you are a good or a bad person. I understand that we're being told that it does. And I understand that we're all of an age where we're coming from a place where the cultural messaging was fat people are bad. I get that. That's still the messaging a lot of the time. And it's 100% wrong. The size of our bodies does not determine whether or not we are good or bad people. But it does impact the way we feel about ourselves, and it can color the way that we feel about ourselves. And we can feel like bad people just because we're big. But it's not true. You are not a bad person just because you're overweight, no matter what society says. And you're not a bad person because of the food choices you make either. Our food choices don't dictate our moral value, even the so-called bad ones. I'm going to say it again. I know you've all heard it, and you're going to hear it a lot more often. I'm not going to stop saying it. Feeling bad about myself never stopped me once from eating. Not one time. Never. It might have stopped me for 15 minutes. It might have even stopped me for a couple hours. It never stopped me. Feeling good about myself has stopped me more times than I can even begin to count. Because I am the person who makes good choices. And I am the person who can control myself when I need to. And I do build up my awareness so that I know what's coming and I can suss out the situations that I'm in and how I'm going to handle them. Even when I make mistakes, I'm still the person who can do hard things and can make good choices. And you all are too. Now I want to talk to you about vehicles. Food vehicles. The food we use to get other foods into our mouths. These are the food items we put the food we really want to eat in or on. They're the thing that delivers the food to our mouths. The burger to our bun, the bread to our grilled cheese. They're the delivery system. A prime example of this is the burrito hack I did on Instagram a few weeks ago. I took a breakfast burrito from 452 calories down to 152 calories, and one of the ways I did it was by swapping out the vehicle. A flour tortilla is 100 calories. I used a spring roll wrap. They're 23 calories. And I know 77 calories might not seem like a big deal, but you have a couple of them and you've saved 154. And old me easily could have eaten 4 or 5 of these things. We've been told that the changes have to be big, but it's the small incremental ones that are going to add up. They also keep you going. They propel you forward. Yes, it's a valid choice to just not have the burritos and have an egg white and spinach omelet instead. But if you don't like those, why would you do that? You know what's going to happen. You can only make yourself eat food that you don't like for so long and then you give up. So isn't it a better choice to find a way to keep eating the food that you actually enjoy? And I am not saying that because I think it's what you want to hear. I'm saying it because it works. I'm saying it because the burnout rate on weight loss is through the roof and the recidivism rate is just as high. You can lose weight eating whatever you want. Remember my whole bacon and bubblegum thing? Yes, I say that to trigger the Gladyses and to get your attention, but mostly I say it because it's true. Because I've realized over the years that I've been doing this, not everybody knows that. Lots of people think that you can only lose weight if you eat certain foods or don't eat certain foods. And you just have to find, the magical combination to unlock your weight loss and the pounds will come off. Maybe keto didn't work, but what if you just ate whole foods or raw foods or foods that were raised on farms that play classical music? We keep chasing the right foods to help us lose weight. We're all terrified of the word calories. It's just so loaded. Some people just shut right down as soon as you mention calorie counting. And I get it. It fucking sucks. But so does losing weight. Instead of looking for the magical key foods or an easier way than the stuff that you've already tried, why not go with the thing you know actually works, even though it sucks? Because it's going to suck no matter what you do. Anyone who tells you it isn't is lying or trying to sell you something or both. And yeah, sure, I have stuff to sell too, but I'm not going to lie to you about it. My program is 53 weeks long because it's hard and it's complicated, and I think you need ongoing support. We've done deep dives on things like spread, sprinkle, pour, my whole thing about low-hanging fruit and how the best way to start making small incremental changes to get yourself into a calorie deficit is to start with things that you spread, sprinkle, or pour. These are calorie-dense foods like mayonnaise or cheese or peanut butter, salad dressing. Lots of calories in teeny tiny amounts of food. Cut a little bit of these and you can save yourself a whack of calories. Fine. The next step is vehicles. What can you do to the food that gets the food into your mouth? Can you modify it like the way that I cut the crusts off my sandwiches because I don't need them, or peel the extra tortilla off my burritos? You can swap things out. I use hard taco shells instead of soft ones, and I put them in place of things like bread to save calories. I actually really like using Boston lettuce instead of hamburger buns or for wraps. I'll use mashed potatoes instead of rice or pasta because they're more satisfying. And often fewer calories because I don't eat as much as I would if it was rice or pasta. We can put up some serious resistance with this one. It's one thing to use slightly less salad dressing or peanut butter, but using a spring roll shell instead of a delicious tortilla is something else entirely. Why would anybody want to give up hamburger buns? Now, I figured out that I can enjoy the crunch of some vegetables almost as much as I love the crunch of chips, so long as I'm dipping them into something. I started looking at the chips as a vehicle for dip, because the dip's the star for me. I really like dip, and I can hack it to so few calories that I can incorporate it into just about any day. Getting chips in, though, is a whole lot harder. But rainbow peppers have almost no calories, and they don't water things down like cucumbers do. Snap peas, same deal. I'm not a big vegetable person. I'm trying to be, but I still want to enjoy my dip. And you might find out that you like some of the swaps even more than the original version too. And if you don't, they're a handy tool to have in your back pocket when you need to save some calories in a hurry. And it's not stuff that you have to do all of the time or forever. Vehicle hacking is just a tool, but it's a super handy one to have when you're trying to find ways to cut calories. It's important that you enjoy what you're eating. That's why I'm all about hacking recipes to make them lower in calories, but still good. It's kind of like the cauliflower rice thing. And if you like it, go for it because it's an amazing calorie saving swap if you enjoy it. Same goes for the zucchini pasta. If you like it, take everything I'm about to say and apply it to a food that you don't like. And that actually goes for everybody listening. You might hate hard taco shells or lettuce or something else that I swap. That's cool. This isn't about the actual foods. It still doesn't matter what you eat. It's just about giving you examples. So here's the thing about the cauliflower rice or zucchini noodles or the whatever you're going to do a vehicle swap with. If you hate it, you're just going to end up eating something else later, or you're going to give up before you get to your goal. The swap has to be worth it. My spring roll shell swap works for me, and it works really well because I love how crispy and crunchy they get. That's super satisfying for me. It's not the same as a tortilla, but I like it better, and I save a decent amount of calories. Because I don't just hack the vehicle. I switched from pork to turkey sausage and I saved a whole bunch there. I cooked the egg using a 0-calorie cooking spray instead of 100 calories worth of butter. I cut 300 calories in total, but the 77 that I saved on the vehicle are a pretty big part of it. It's incremental changes. They add up. And because they're small and you don't feel like you're suffering all the time, you've got the mental space to take a look at what's going on with your relationship with food, because that's the key to being able to keep going long enough to get to your goal. And it's the key to keeping your weight off. You need to do the work while you're losing your weight. That is a topic for a whole other episode. Now, if you've got a topic that you'd like me to cover, head on over to disruptingobesity.com and send me a message, or you can always find me on Instagram. If you'd like to be on those live calls, check out the link below and join me inside Flamingo Forum. There's daily accountability, direct access to me, and a community of women who are losing weight and changing their relationships with food. I would love to see you there. Next week is episode 100. And as I'm recording this, it is still not done, but it's going to be a bit of a doozy, I think. It's a pretty emotional milestone for me, but I am really, really excited about everything that we've got coming up. Keep trying, keep tracking, don't be intimidated, and don't give up. You have totally got this. Thank you for listening to Disrupting Obesity with Charlotte Skanes. If you know it's time to take back control, lose the weight, and keep it off, reach out to me privately with a direct message on Instagram that says ready, so you can start disrupting obesity.